Are you really ready for what's coming? Because what's unfolding next isn't just a shift in your life. It's a complete reset of everything you thought was true about healing, about strength, about who you are. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." But what he didn't say is that the moment you truly awaken, the world no longer sees you the same. And that's where most people fail. They rush to share, to explain, to seek validation for what's sacred. But here's the truth most never hear. Not everything you experience on your spiritual journey is meant to be shared. Some things, the most powerful things, are meant to be protected in silence. Because silence is not absence. Silence is the soil where transformation takes root. You feel it, don't you? That urge to speak, to be understood, to show the world how far you've come. But if you're not careful, the very act of exposing your inner evolution can destroy it. This isn't just about psychology. This is about power, spiritual power. And the more you understand the depth of your own shadow, the more you'll realize healing is not loud. It's sacred. It's invisible. If you've been feeling different, if your mind has been quieter, if your soul is pulling you inward, that's not a coincidence. It's a call. And what you'll discover in this video might just change the way you walk your path forever. Stay with me. What's coming next is not for everyone, but if it's for you, you'll know. If you're still here, it means something inside you is listening, not just with your mind, but with your soul. Because people who aren't ready usually click away when the noise stops, but you stayed. And that tells me you've already begun. This is more than a video, it's a mirror. A quiet reflection for those walking the invisible path of transformation. The kind of path where few applause, few understand, and fewer still survive with their spirit intact. Carl Jung didn't just teach psychology, he revealed a doorway. And in this space, we're not chasing the surface anymore, we're diving straight into the root. That's why I created something for those who want to go further, not because they're broken, but because they're ready. If this message speaks to you, you'll find a powerful tool waiting in the pinned comment, a resource designed to guide your inner work with depth and clarity. It's not for everyone, but if it's for you, you'll feel it. And if you resonate with this type of exploration, if you're drawn to deep psychology, self-healing, and the power of silence, subscribe now and turn on the bell, because we go deep consistently. Each video is a step further into yourself. Now let's begin. Let's talk about what it truly means to walk in silence and why the next phase of your journey will change everything. There's a moment in every inner journey where words start to fail, not because the experience isn't real, but because it becomes too real for language. And that's where silence begins its sacred work. We live in a world addicted to noise, to the constant sharing, the need to be seen, the fear of being forgotten. But Jung taught us something radical. That transformation doesn't happen in exposure. It happens in containment. When you speak too soon about what you're still processing, something happens. The energy disperses. The seed is exposed to winds that aren't meant for it yet. And the magic that was once growing inside you begins to fade. Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." But what he didn't say, yet deeply implied, is that awakening requires protection. Because the world doesn't always recognize sacred things. It questions them. It tries to label them. Sometimes it mocks them. That's why true growth thrives in silence. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's incubation. It's the soft, dark soil where the roots of your soul learn how to hold, and it's where your real self, your unfiltered essence, begins to whisper back. But here's the hard truth. Most people fear the silence. They'll fill it with anything, scrolling, talking, proving, performing, because when the world goes quiet, we're left with ourselves, and most haven't yet made peace with what they find in the mirror. But you feel the difference. You've noticed that every time you try to share your process, something gets lost. A truth that once felt whole starts to feel hollow when explained. That's not weakness. That's spiritual sensitivity. And it's the first sign you're being called to protect your process, because not everything is meant to be shared. Not. Yet think of it like this. If you were building a sacred temple brick by brick, would you open the doors before the walls were complete? Would you allow the wind to blow through before the roof was secure? No, you'd wait, you'd protect, you'd honor the process. Your inner transformation is no different. There's a sacred unfolding happening in you right now, and what it needs, more than anything, is space. Space away from distraction, validation, and comparison. That's what silence offers. It allows the soul to settle. It lets your unconscious rise gently to the surface without interruption, and it lets the deeper truths of who you are emerge on their own terms. Jung saw the unconscious not as a vault of repression, but as a living intelligence. Our guide, a voice of wisdom that speaks in symbols, feelings, and intuitions. But here's the key: it only speaks when it's safe. And silence is what makes it feel safe. When you resist the urge to speak prematurely, when you hold your revelations close, you create that safety, you become the sanctuary. And in that sanctuary, something powerful begins to bloom. Clarity, wholeness, direction. Suddenly, the questions you've carried for years begin to soften, not because someone answered them, but because your inner self finally did. That's the beauty of the silence. It's not passive, it's potent. And the deeper you lean into it, the more it reveals. But here's what they won't tell you. Choosing silence takes strength. It's easy to share. It's easy to shout your truth for likes and approval. It's much harder to sit in stillness and let it mature, because silence requires trust. Trust in your path, trust in your timing, trust in your own voice, before anyone else's. So if you're here, still listening, still holding this message close, you're already further along than you realize, because the world is full of noisemakers. But the ones who change it are the ones who learn to listen first. Silence and individuation. The sacred journey of returning to yourself. Carl Jung taught us that true fulfillment doesn't come from becoming what the world expects from us, but from becoming who we truly are. He called this process individuation. And the most surprising part? This awakening doesn't happen under the spotlight. It happens in silence, in the dark, far from social media, unsolicited advice, and outside opinions. Individuation is a solitary journey, and not as punishment, but as necessity, because the birth of your true self needs sacred space to grow. Think of the butterfly. Before it can fly, it hides within a cocoon. It stays there, invisible, still, quiet. But inside, the transformation is explosive. The silence we see from the outside is actually the fertile ground where real life begins to pulse. It's the same with the human soul. It's when you step away from the noise of the world that you start hearing your soul with clarity. But why is that so hard? Because we've been conditioned to believe that sharing is always better, that telling everyone about every step of our journey proves we're evolving. But Jung warned, the more we expose what's still being formed within us, the more we weaken its life force. Have you ever felt that? Told someone about an idea, a plan, a spiritual insight, and suddenly it lost its magic? It lost its power? That's not a coincidence. It's your soul asking to be protected. In this context, silence isn't absence, it's containment, it's internal maturation. It's like an invisible womb that holds the soul while it rebuilds. When you speak too soon, you disrupt that process, and that's why so many feel lost, discouraged, disconnected, even after beginning their spiritual path. Because without realizing it, they opened doors too early. They let outside voices contaminate something that wasn't ready to be understood. Carl Jung spoke of the unconscious as a deep ocean. The surface of our conscious mind sees only reflections of what lies beneath, and the deeper you go, the more silence you need, because the inner dive is delicate. The slightest distraction can pull you off course. And what about the shadow? That part of us we deny, avoid, hide. It's in silence that it reveals itself. It's in silence that we can hold our wounds without fear of judgment. Individuation is exactly that, integrating the shadow into the self, bringing to light what once lived in the dark. And that doesn't happen out loud. It's intimate, it's delicate, it's a conversation between you and the deepest parts of yourself. But listen, this isn't emotional isolation. It's not about shutting out the world. It's about creating a safe space where your truth can bloom. You can still work, live, connect, but at the same time, maintain an internal territory that's yours alone, a space where no one enters, where the process unfolds without interference, where your soul can breathe, unfiltered. That's where true growth begins. Because when you respect your soul's timing, it responds, it speaks, it shows you what needs to be healed, it reveals your next steps. But it only does this when it feels safe. And that safety is born in silence. Jung knew there is something sacred in the unspoken, something precious in holding on to certain experiences until they're ready to be offered to the world. And perhaps some may never need to be shared. Some healings are so deep, so personal. They belong to you alone, and that is beautiful. It is freeing. It's the truest sign that you're going deep, beyond appearances, beyond expectations, beyond the need to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to be understood by everyone. You don't need to explain your journey. You only need to walk it in truth. And for that, silence is your greatest ally. Silence as a sacred portal, spiritual protection, and energetic strength. There is a kind of silence that isn't the absence of sound, but the full presence of soul. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He didn't see silence as emptiness, but as sacred space, where your vital energy can finally begin to reorganize. It's in this space that inner chaos finds form. It's right there, Faz, where everything appears still on the outside, that real movement begins. Because in the invisible world, everything that grows and first grows in silence. Look at a tree. It doesn't make noise as its roots expand. It doesn't announce to the world that it's about to bloom. It just grows, with trust, with patience, and the soul does the same. Have you noticed how some of your most powerful transformations happened with no witnesses? No posts, no likes, no external narratives. Those moments when you cried alone, when you faced your fears, when you chose not to respond, not to react, and just to feel. Those moments changed you, and no one saw it, no one needed to, because real power doesn't need an audience. Silence is energetic protection. It's like an invisible shield that guards you from the noise of other people's thoughts, from interference by those who don't understand your moment. It's a subtle yet inviolable armor that keeps your truth from being distorted by someone else's lens. The truth is, not everyone will understand your journey, and that's okay. Not everyone has the eyes to see the invisible. Some will mock, some will question, many will project their own fears onto you. And that's where silence becomes your shield. You don't need to explain. You don't need to convince. You don't need to translate what only you are meant to feel. The quieter your process, the purer it remains. Jung said the collective unconscious is a vast sea of invisible influences. And without realizing it, we absorb fear, insecurity, doubt, not just our own, but everyone's around us. That's why sharing something before it's ready can be dangerous. You're exposing your light to a storm that didn't come from your soul and the soul level. It feels everything. It shuts down when it's invaded. It retreats when it's not respected. It needs silence, to breathe, to trust, to bloom. There is something deeply spiritual in holding back, in guarding your inner flame, as you would protect a candle from a raging wind. It's a gesture of reverence to the sacred that lives inside of you. Some call it intuition. Others call it ancestral wisdom. But Jung knew this is the language of the soul, and the soul doesn't shout, it whispers, and only those who silence the outside world can hear. Spiritual protection begins in silence, not with words, prayers, or rituals, but with the decision to preserve what's invisible. Because yes, there is an invisible force inside you, an energy that pulses when you meditate, when you close your eyes and return to your presence, when you feel instead of explain, when you perceive instead of justify. Silence is not inaction, it is deep action. It's where your energy centers realign. It's where you hear what the ego could never hear. It's where you receive guidance, not from outside, but from within. Jung believed that every human being carries divine potential. But this potential must be cultivated in secret, like an alchemist transforming lead into gold, inside the soul's sacred laboratory. And you know what happens when you become silent within. You stop reacting, you start choosing, you stop living on autopilot, and start living with energetic awareness. You realize you don't have to be everywhere, you don't have to please everyone, you don't have to prove anything to anyone, because those who are in silence are whole, and those who are whole fear losing nothing. At this point, silence is no longer a choice. It becomes a state of consciousness. You don't step away because you're weak. You withdraw to become stronger. You don't stay silent out of fear. You stay silent to hear what only your soul can say. This silence is not empty. It is full of wisdom. It is your inner teacher, your invisible temple, your sacred sanctuary, and it's within that sanctuary that your true power is born, the power that awaits in your silence. There is a moment when everything inside you falls quiet, not because you gave up, but because you finally chose yourself. No more explaining, no more proving, no more searching for permission to evolve. You stop asking others what your soul already knows. That moment is sacred because it marks the beginning of your true transformation. Jung said, "What you resist persists, what you embrace transforms." And maybe today you've realized that the silence you feared is the very silence you needed to hear your truth. So let me ask you, what would happen if you stopped broadcasting your pain and started listening to the whisper within? What if you honored the divine timing of your healing without trying to make it understandable to everyone? Because healing is not a performance, it's a return to you. And the path inward, it begins in silence. But you don't have to walk it alone. That's why we created a powerful ebook, one that goes far. Beyond this video, inside you'll find clear exercises, guided reflections, and transformative questions based on Carl Jung's psychology and the sacred wisdom of individuation. This is your map to realignment, to stop getting lost in noise and start hearing the soul again. This is not just theory, it's daily practice. It's your toolbox to integrate shadow, rebuild trust in your intuition, and realign your inner world, even when the outer world feels chaotic. The ebook link is in the pinned comment below. If this video resonated with you, don't miss this. Use it in your quiet moments. Return to it when doubt creeps in. It was designed to protect your growth and deepen it. And if you feel this message speaks to something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications, because every week we bring you deeper into the world of Carl Jung's transformative wisdom. Your silence is not weakness, it's your greatest strength, and your soul is listening. See you in the next episode.